My name's Chris, and welcome to the acreage. You've already met him, but here is the old geezer. The old geezer is a 1974 John Deere 310A backhoe. In some ways, this is not the machine that I want, but it's a machine I could afford. So after I rented the excavators that I used to put in the driveway and do the work that's been done here, I realized really quickly I needed to have some sort of equipment. Heavy machinery makes everything easier. For every 3-4 hours that I might do digging a hole by hand, that can do it in 2 or 3 minutes, if that. And because of that, that is a force amplifier. Even though it's old, even though it doesn't work nearly as well as a newer machine would. But one of the problems with backhoes is that they're a compromise. And they are an excavator because they have the hoe on the back, but because you can't actually swing the whole machine side to side, it's really difficult to be able to do precision work. You're constantly moving around, moving the machine to get in line with whatever you need to dig. And that's much slower, but then at the same time, it's just so much faster than doing it by hand. And it's a loader, but not a very good loader because it's slow. This particular machine, the hydraulics are a little bit weak. So it doesn't do a really good job lifting stuff. It doesn't do a good job pushing stuff. But again, it'll lift and push way more than I can. Before I bought this machine, I spent a lot of time researching equipment, watching videos, reading, looking what was available online. Probably about 2 years looking at machines, understanding what they were, what they could do, how much they cost, understanding shipping for the machines. And so I knew that I wanted an excavator, but excavators, even relatively cheap ones, I'd be looking at $35,000, $40,000. I couldn't afford it. I probably could have done with a skid steer, but with a skid steer, it's so compact. They require a lot of work with a relatively low number of hours, which is hard to do because they're so compact. And I don't have anything here that would allow me to easily work on a machine like that. So I was kind of hesitant for that reason. All the skid steers that were in my price range were really old, really beat up, and would certainly need the work that I didn't want to do. I knew that I wanted the ability to dig as with an excavator, which the hoe gives me the arm to do so. I wanted to be able to move material around, which the bucket gives me, but it does none of those things very well. You can be moving the excavator around very easily. You can spin it around on its bearing. You can turn its tracks. You can move it very, very easily in tight spaces. Not that I necessarily have to worry about super tight spaces because, I mean, acres, but it still makes it a lot easier to be able to do precision work. With this machine, you only have a relatively limited reach of the arm. So if you're trying to dig a larger hole or you're trying to dig a trench, you're constantly moving the machine and not just like you're digging, you pause, you roll the machine back. No, you're lifting the outriggers, you're moving the machine, you're repositioning it to where it needs to be, put the outriggers back down and dig. It's still way faster than doing it by hand, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly less efficient from a digging perspective. As a loader, oh, I guess it's okay. This particular one, the hydraulics are a little bit weak, so it has issue lifting a full heavy bucket, and it's not good at pushing. It just tends to sort of tilt down. So I have to do some work there to figure out whether it's the hydraulic pump is starting to fail, but it's still going to lift and move more material. The shipping is what got me in the end because it took about 25 minutes to drive it here. Cost me $500. That was manageable. But if I wanted to get a machine from Southern Ontario where there's a whole lot more machines available, that easily would have cost me 6 or 7 grand. That basically took the machine from being just affordable to being not affordable at all. Another option that I was interested in was a 1960s tractor. there were quite a few of them that I'd looked at. I'd say I probably looked at 7 or 8. They were all really beat up. And that's not really a big deal. I mean, this one's really beat up. And I had looked at a couple other machines that were similar vintage or a little bit older. Most of them were in decent shape, but they weren't necessarily in great shape. And they all had problems. But part of the issue was being able to get parts for them. For all of that, the only real choice that I had was to buy what was available. And this machine was the only option that was really left to me, given what was available in my area, the cost of shipping, and what I needed from a machine. So I pulled the trigger. I bought this machine last year. I bought it from a fellow locally that had had it listed for a while.
And overall, he had pretty much gotten everything that he needed to get done with that machine. The owner even came out to help unload it because I didn't have any experience driving a machine like that. And I was really uncomfortable driving it up and off of a tilt wheel. So he did that for me, which was great.
Now, the previous owner had had this machine for 5 or 6 years. And when they originally bought it, just like me, they had a father-in-law who was a mechanic. The father-in-law had helped them maintain, but he had passed away. And so one of the reasons why he was getting rid of the machine was he wasn't as comfortable doing some of the work that it was going to need over time. So some of the challenges with this machine are from its age. I already had one instance where I needed parts because I noticed when I first got it that it was leaking oil from around the head cover. And so my father-in-law figured that it was probably an old head gasket that had failed. They were originally cork and they tended to rot out over time. So if it was original, almost certainly it was going to need to be replaced. So I ordered one from the local Deere dealership, and to my surprise, I had it the next day. When I took the head off, I was surprised to see that there was nothing there. So clearly, the original owner had done some work and forgot to put it back, which made it leak, surprisingly. And so it was a minor detail, but again, the fact that I was able to easily get parts for it, even though it's a 50-year-old machine, was a pretty big factor because I had looked at some of the older Massey Fergusons and even Ford machines, and parts were really hard to come by. You could buy them on eBay or whatever else, but you'd be paying $400 or $500, whereas the head gasket for this machine cost me like $40. The other thing I did with this machine was I put on a lip on the bucket. So a lot of the work that I'm going to be doing here is dragging the driveway, and the front of the bucket was already a little bit chewed up, but it wasn't too bad. But I didn't want it to get to the point where as I start getting in more gravel and I start pushing around that kind of material, I didn't want to wear out the bucket. So I bought a new blade for it, and that cost me, it was like $200, and it's going to last the life of the machine. but it's really old. And because it's old, it's somewhat worn out. It is not very precise. The linkages for the hoe are completely loose. They are basically rods of metal that are supposed to have small bushings, so that way when you move the stick, that force is then brought to the hydraulic valves, which then moves the hoe. These ones are just loose as all get out. I've taken it apart, tightened everything. I got it a little bit better, but it's not enough. When I was using the excavators, they all had pilot controls, so they're just like little sticks on either side of the seat, and it was so easy to be able to do very small movements. And I could use the bucket with the thumb to easily pick up sticks off the ground if I wanted to. And that's the kind of fidelity that I would like to have with this machine, because it allows me to reach over and grab a log or whatever else and place it. But right now, that, like everything that you do, there's so much play and so much overshooting what you are trying to do because of the issues with the linkages, that it's really hard to use. The original owner was working in an area that was really rocky, and he was using all the hoe to put in a driveway to his camp. Those rocks caused some real problems with this machine. He was pulling rocks from the hill, and they were obviously rolling down, and the stabilizers were out, and it chewed them up. There's nicks and dings and dents, and the chrome has been knocked off, so that way they're starting to rust, and the rods go through the seals and they chew them up. They leak a little bit, and the more I use them, the more they're going to leak. I haven't even been able to bring myself to find out how much it's going to be to recondition those cylinders, but that's something I'm probably going to have to do next year. Quite a few of the hydraulic lines are old. They've been there for 15, 20 years, and it's only a matter of time before they fail. And that makes me nervous because I don't really want to spray hydraulic oil all over the place. And a hydraulic leak is actually really dangerous. And that's another thing that I'm going to have to work on. One of the other issues with the machine is it is heavy. It is 12,500 pounds, something like that. And that means when I'm driving in this mucky soup that the driveway can turn into, it's really super easy to have it just sink. And one of the reasons that that's a big problem is obviously you can get really stuck. With the hoe, you can actually pull yourself out, and I've had to do that 3 times now. From the cab, you can't actually see what the wheels are doing. Similarly, when you're trying to move material, pick stuff up, you can't see over the edge of the bucket, so there's visibility issues. I've already bought 3 mirrors, so I can put a mirror on each side, so that way I can see what the tires are doing, and I can see over the lip of the bucket. And that way, at least I have the visibility I need to know what's going on. I'm less likely to get in a position where I really dig the machine in, because where I got in trouble was I thought I was moving forward because it was sort of lurching, but it was just rocking back and forth in the same spot, and the tires were spinning and digging their way down. Once I can see that the tires aren't actually moving, I'm going to stop right there, put it in neutral, and use the hoe to pull myself out. The hoe is a standard, and it's a little difficult to use. One of the gears is definitely not working very well. It's really hard to get it in gear. The parking gear doesn't work. The brakes don't work, at least not well enough that I can notice. But these are all problems that aren't really that big a deal, because I can manage it because I'm not going up big hills. I'm not going down big hills, at least not yet. Certainly won't without fixing those brakes. But for all of those things, the biggest issue is the height of this machine. When I'm sitting in it, my head is 9, 10 feet off the ground. So any movement side to side, I instantly feel it, and I'm instantly uncomfortable. And because they had done work to the machine where they basically separated the cab and lifted it off the chassis, when they reattached it, they did not do a very good job. And that means that when the machine is rocking back and forth, the cab rotates relative to the chassis. So when you tilt over, it tilts, and the cab keeps going, which really exacerbates that inner ear issue, because now it's getting feedback from my eyes saying, oh yeah, you're going over. And it's better every time I drive it. It's a little bit better because I'm more used to what it's doing. I understand how it moves a little bit better. But when you're trying to go up a hill or down a hill or over something that's sideways, it is super uncomfortable. I tend to put out the outriggers so that way they're sideways, so at least I know if it does start to go, there's something to catch. It makes it a little more difficult driving around, but I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry, I suppose. One of the biggest problems for me in this is the fact that I know how good an excavator is, and I'm always trying to be more efficient, trying to do the best I can in any given situation. So when I'm using the backhoe, I'm constantly thinking how this would be better with the excavator, and it frustrates me no end, even though it is better than anything else that I could do right now. And in a way, it's really silly, but at the same time, it's something that's always on my mind. And I would rather have a machine that I'm able to use effectively to its maximum capability, even though it's limited because it's smaller, than having this larger machine that is nothing but frustration, both because a backhoe as it exists is limited, but because this one is so much more limited because of its control issues, its hydraulic issues, and just the issues that come from its age. So the ideal situation is that I get to the gravel and I can use some of that material to smooth out the path to the gravel, smooth out the driveway. It'll make everything so much easier, because then for the most part, I can drive the machine around and it's not going to be feeling tippy because I'm going over a relatively smooth surface. That will make life so much easier. But all told, it is old. It's a geezer. Now, how long am I going to keep this machine? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I have the machine, and it's just a matter of keeping up on the maintenance, doing the repairs that need to be done, and overall just keep using it, so that way I get more and more used to how it moves. Because even though my inner ear is uncomfortable with it, if I am used to how it feels and I know the range of movement, my brain will start to understand that and it won't be as bad. In the end, though, in hindsight, I paid $12,500 for this machine. So far, I've put another $1,000 into it between um, getting it here, the lip, and the gasket. For that amount of money, I could have got a small mini excavator that had a cab, that had air conditioning, that had a thumb. And while it might have only been a 1.5 ton machine, maybe a 2 ton if I was lucky, I would be using it all the time. And the amount of time that I spent not using this one because I had to steel myself up to dealing with the movement or having to spend time repairing it or all these things, I probably would have been better off. And while a little mini excavator would have been absolutely useless for moving material around, I could have invested in just a trailer and used my truck for that. So on Sunday, I came out and decided that I should get rid of the water that's at the front of the driveway. It's been sitting there now for several years. And the issue with that is because I had pushed that sandy clay over top of the road, the standing water makes the clay really slippery and soft. And every time I drive through it, the ruts get a little bit deeper. I've used the hoe, I've used the excavator, I've used buckets and shovels to fill it back in, but inevitably it always fills back up. And part of the reason for that is I didn't put enough material on top of the road so that way the water could slough off. And unintentionally, when I was putting it in, I created a little ridge on either side of the road that allows the water to sort of stay trapped and come into the center. So what I did is pretty straightforward. moved the grass out of the way, dug a simple trench. And I connected all puddles with their own little trenches, and lo and behold, drainage. And it drained fairly quickly. But the real test was yesterday, where we had some pretty heavy rains, and I came back today and it's completely dry. So I'm pretty happy with that. One more problem solved. Once I have some gravel, I'm going to take some geotextile fabric, put the gravel inside of that, and create a French drain that goes off to the side to the ditch. It will make sure that the clay underneath doesn't get soft and will keep the driveway from sinking over time. Nom nom nom. Look at those. So next week's video, I'm going to take some time and show you the whole property. Where things are, where the terrain features are, where I'm putting the house, and laying all that out on a map so you can have a good sense of what I'm doing and where. And also some of the terminologies, the areas of the property, so that way I can sort of, as time goes on, be able to say, oh, well, I'm going to this area. And you can know where I'm going. Several of my friends and family have sort of asked more about where things are. And I think it makes sense to sort of go over that. I need to file for the permit for the house and the sheds and whatever else, and so I need to finish doing the house design at least within cross section, so that way I can file that, and at the same time can tell you all about it. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. I'd also appreciate a like and a subscribe. We'll see you next time.